I wanted to thank everybody for following along in my bass season, which is nearing completion now, but I just did the last 3 videos I put out were about my Appear on Bass series and launching this sort of design your own thing. And already in the first couple weeks I have 3 custom orders coming in. 2 of them are left-handed, 2 of them have alternate tuning, 1 of them has some other special requirements. So I love that system works, that even though all of the options that we're putting on the instrument aren't necessarily listed on the website that people chose, it was able to get them there to the point where we could finish designing them and making them the way they want within the price parameter of this website that I built. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out the other videos I made and check out appearonbass.com. I'm really proud of this design. But today we're going to look at something I didn't build that's in this box right here that I'm really excited to open. Let's open it first. Spoiler alert, it's not a Squire by Fender. It is an instrument that was made overseas, but not that recently, and not that part of overseas. When I was a teenager, my dad and I went into the city. We went to 48th Street, which is like Music Row, they used to call it, and there's always great guitar shops. And I don't remember which one it was. It might have been Manny's, that I saw a Hagstrom like this in the window, and I was probably 12 or 13 years old. I just started really taking music seriously. And I fell in love with the guitar. The salesman was trying to talk my dad into buying it for me, of course, and of course that didn't happen. And I've always wanted one ever since, but it's not like something I've actively sought out. Obviously, in the past 170 years since that happened, I could have gone out and bought one of these. And I was scrolling around Facebook the other day and saw someone was selling this, and so I bought it because I thought it would be a fun little project to get back together. You can see it's complete and intact. I like original. I want to keep it as original as possible. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit and just put it in my personal collection. Now, if you've seen some of my designs, you can see that these types of Japanese and Swedish guitars and stuff have always had a place in my heart in the way I design. And it was these little switches, all the switches that captivated me. But so this is a Kent 1 is this model, and it was a 60s guitar. The serial number on this, I did a little look up on it, and I found it's from either 1965 or 1966. But what was really funny is when I was doing the search, I was searching just the first 3 numbers. And I looked at the rest of the number, and it's actually the number of this guitar. Someone about a year ago had asked someone about this specific guitar and when it was made. This guy answered. I don't know how long I'll hang on to it myself, honestly, but I've always wanted to play one, so today's the day. Plus, it's going to look really nice with my 1963 Volvo. I mean, they're practically cousins. But before I do anything, I'm just going to tune her up, plug her in, and see what she sounds like. These tuners work better than I thought. I thought to make this playable I was going to have to replace them, but... Electrical problems. Raise your hand if you're surprised. Okay, so it looks like we got pickup on and off, tone switch, and then a mute. Oh, it's not a mute actually, it's just a volume reduction. How interesting, so you got a little volume boost here. I can't wait to get in here, see what's going on, and we'll see if we can make it play a little better. I started by cutting off the old disgusting strings that were on there and dismantling the entire guitar. I love seeing all the flathead screws. Everything came apart real quick, no strip screws or anything like that, real easy. Someone had a little bit of a shim in here. Some aluminum foil, I guess looks like this aluminum foil goes all the way underneath. And there is a truss rod right there, but it's one of those horrible designs where you have to take the neck off to actually use it. And there is a ground wire here that was not touching it, or maybe it is. I have to make sure that's on there. So the piece of wood on this is less than 1 inch thick. So the whole thing is 1.3 inches thick. I tend to make my guitars around 1.35 inches to 1.5 inches thick. I always thought that was thick enough. This is a little bit thin, but totally functional. And like I think it would make, you know, like Gibson's and Fenders, they make these guitars like 1 6/8 or 5/8 inches thick and 3/4 inches thick and 2 inches thick. It's like, it's just so heavy. It's not necessary. So this is not the original bridge that came with it. Of course, this is some kind of sort of rigged up contraption of a tune-o-matic bridge, and you can see these are actually like a plumber kind of washer that they use and a couple screws that they put on this thing to make it work. So it, it's working. I'll probably just stick with it. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a internet search to see if I can find an original bridge for it. But from the looks of what I saw just looking now, I think a lot of people will replace them with floating wood bridges because, or that maybe they even were made, some were made that way. Because I'm seeing a metal bridge that's not quite as intonatable, or a wooden floating like arch top style bridge on these in most. But so I'll consider this an improvement maybe. But I'm already getting ideas for future designs. Oh, look at that. It's actually like a, I don't know what this paper's all about. This is always fun. There's a note. Got some aluminum foil in there. Refinished 8/1904 by Tom Thorpe. So if anybody knows old Tom, let him know I'm digging into his guitar again. I figured I should add my name and date in there too. First thing I wanted to do was fill in the missing inlays. There were 2 of them that were gone, so I used my laser cutter to cut a couple circles out of this mother of toilet seat pickguard material that I have that was a little bit thicker than the hole, and I didn't want to drill the hole deeper, so I sanded down the back of those pieces instead of putting it in and then sanding it down flush, because I would lose the toilet seat look, and this way I could just dip them in, and then I had to just scrape them a little bit to make them flush, and they would still keep that perloid look. They don't look exactly like the old ones that are in there, but they're close enough for rock and roll. And I also had a little bit of a hole I noted. I have no idea what that hole was for, but it was a little hole on the back of the neck that I just filled in with some CA glue, and there's also a little bit of a gap on the fingerboard I filled in with CA glue. Cleaned that all up, and I put a little bit of Mod Podge on the logo that was flaking off because I want to keep that, and it's like a glue and preservative that would help protect that. So with the neck ready to go, it's time to dig into the electronics, and what I notice here right away is you see that the red wires are the ground on the pickups, and they're actually just together, but they were only touching with tape, the foil shielding, and then the other ground coming off the capacitors is also just taped to the foil, and none of it. Then there's even the ground end of the volume knob was just down touching the foil. So none of it was grounded properly, and that's certainly where all that noise came from. So I went and I re-shielded it all. I put a new 1/4-inch jack in just because why not? And I ran leads off that, and I ran a proper ground to the top of the volume jack. So that way I could ground all the pickups, all the switches, and the external jack right to that, as well as running an additional wire to go to the bridge to help with some noise canceling there. So really cleaned up the electronics, and a little test here proved that everything was working fine. I'm not sure exactly what this top is made of. My guess would be Bakelite or some similar, vintage plastic, because there weren't a lot of plastics around back then, only a couple different variations. And this corner had cracked, and I just used a little bit of CA glue to glue it together. And once I got it back together in place, which was relatively easy, I added a bunch of glue to the inside of it to sort of support it and fill in that crack. So you can see this thing's been repaired a couple times over the years from the looks of things, and it's obviously a fragile point, so I just thought I'd build it up with a little bit of CA glue. And then put the top back on and buff it all out. And I put it back on first to support it, because I was afraid if I started buffing it out while it was just floating loose with that lip that I could crack it some more. You see I'm just Scotch-Briting the original screws just a little bit, put a little shine on it, not trying to make them look brand new, but just clean them up a little bit. And I also cleaned up those pickups a little bit, which I really like. And this is a plastic polish that I didn't go crazy, but I just basically used it to clean the plastic top and see if I could get a little bit of a shine out of it. I'm sure I could go in and really work it and buff it and make it shiny, but I don't know. I like patina. I just don't like dirt. I'm almost actively hostile towards the Jag Stang style tremolo piece. I just don't think they're well made, but I've seen some like this one, for example, that are made so much better than what Fender does. I wish they could get that together and make something better like these Hagstroms were. And so then I went through and I checked the neck to see if it was straight. I decided to bring the neck pocket back down and remove that shim, which someone glued in, which is not necessary. And of course, had to put a little bit of my mark on there as well with my branded knob and my little plate that I put on the headstock here. So I took the rubber plumbing washers out from under the bridge so I could get it down a little bit lower, and I also took the shim out of the neck, so I basically set it back to where it was, and just like this we're getting a pretty nice, a little bit over 2/32 string height, which is pretty acceptable for a guitar this way. And so far there doesn't seem to be any buzzes or anything. I haven't done any fret work, so it all feels pretty good, and is looking pretty good. Might take a tiny shim here to set up a little better. But then the other thing is that this bridge, you know, is obviously not the original, and you see the string spacing on is pretty off, particularly this low E. But it's still, I mean, who really plays the low E up here all that much? It's not too big of a deal. But what I might be able to do is just put a little notch right there and just bring it in a little bit tighter to that one, and then I could maybe even just put a little extra notch in this one and just sort of bridge that gap. Then you can see down here on the high E string there's a little bit of extra sort of hang over there. I think, like, I feel like that would be maybe better suited out here a little bit, but then it doesn't line up with the pickup poles. So if you look at the pickup poles, that's kind of perfect right there. And even this E is pretty close to perfect. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to leave that extra wood there because that's actually where we would maybe want a little extra fingerboard, you know. And I'm just going to try notching these two strings over just a tiny bit to just get them to basically look better. And if I have to, I can replace this bridge altogether. I'm just going to put a little bit of a notch right here. There we go, looks pretty good. And then we'll do the same right here, just a little bit further. There we go, that looks good. That looks a lot better. And you know, they're a little bit close together. If you were to measure these, they're going to be off by a hair, but actually, I mean, I could keep going. I like where these are lined up on the poles perfectly. We could actually do these too, but I'm afraid that the slot would have to be so close to the existing slot that they would bleed together and the string might get loose and sloppy in there, so we'll leave it like that. I went through and set the intonation, and then I did find there was a little bit of a buzz down in the high E string on the first couple of frets, and I found that 5th fret had gotten a little high, and so I just brought that down and got it all. That was pretty much it. The frets are really old and worn. I like the feel of those old low frets, so it didn't take a lot to bring that back to life. Now let's see how she plays. You know, for what guitars like this lack in maybe fit and finish, and some even like tonally and all that stuff, I think they just make up for in style like so much. Like, this is just a wicked cool looking guitar. It's very unique in the way it's put together and stuff, and you know, it plays like a 60s inexpensive import guitar, but it's pretty good. Like, it's, you know, a lot of those guitars, some of them are like too far gone, but a lot of them can be saved, and this is definitely one of the ones that's on the good side. You could totally go out and play this guitar even with the kind of mismatched bridge and stuff. Other than that, you know, it's pretty original. I didn't replace the switches or the knob, just the 1/4-inch jack, and I can still hear, especially on the treble pickup, there's still a little bit of static, a little bit of crackle in that switch, so I might end up having to replace one of those switches. I'm hoping not, because they're original and honestly probably better than the new ones getting made overseas nowadays. But you know, whatever. That's like not a big thing to do. Wicked cool guitar. This one's just going in my collection for now. Like I said, it's sort of a bucket list guitar for me, and I'm super happy to have it around. I think it actually sounds pretty cool too. It's got a unique sound. It doesn't sound like any other guitar out there, which is something that I look for in guitars, right? And what I try to do when I make them and design them too. So, hey, thanks a lot for watching. Back to my regularly scheduled programming next week, maybe the week after. I don't know. We'll have some cool stuff coming up soon. Some really cool stuff. See you then.